Hello, and welcome to my list of my least favourite songs of 1990. This was the year where we saw Gaza cry at the World Cup, Germany was reunified, the first web server was created, and the She-Devil was kicked out of Downing Street and the whole country celebrated. Now this is the beginning of me attempting to undertake a larger overall project in which I go through every year from the 90s onwards chronologically up to the present day. So it makes logical sense to start from 1990. Now you may be asking, Kylie, why are you starting from the 90s in particular? Well, it's mainly because I'm a proud 90s kid with a lot of fond childhood memories of the music of that decade. And also, I was partly inspired to start from the 90s after seeing a few other people's 90s year-end lists and wanting to give my own take as someone who actually remembers, well, most of the decade. As we move through the years, I will also try to give some historical context to help you better understand why certain things were indeed a thing, whether it's for good or for bad. Now, from what I can tell, a lot of people's impressions of the big hits of 1990 was that it was essentially an extra year of the 80s. And that's certainly the case, at least judging from the big American hits, but I also think that here in the UK at least, 1990 also had some sonic trends that are unique to that specific year that didn't stick around past 91. Just as a brief example, in my opinion, Adamski's Killer could only have been made in 1990. And judging by my worst list of this year, I'd say that the general trend you're gonna see in my worst list is old 80s trends that have well outstayed their welcome. At least for the most part. My criteria for what's eligible for this list is the following. Anything that debuted in Billboard's year-end list for 1990, the European Hot 100 year-end list for 1990, or anything that cracked the top 10 anywhere in the world that didn't make either year-end list. And here comes an important disclaimer that I want you to keep in mind when it comes to these retro lists that I'm going to be making in the future. Back in the day before streaming, it would take months for a song to travel across the various markets across the world, so I will try to take into consideration a song's international peak as opposed to their domestic debut. Like for example, EMF's Unbelievable was a UK hit in 1990, but its international peak was 91. Anyway, I think that intro was way longer than it needed to be, so let's stop messing about and get on to the actual list. Yeah, first song in and already I'm picking on an easy target. Well, at least for us Brits is an easy target. For those of you North Americans out there who have no idea who this Burke in the Hawaiian shirt is, well, he was a popular kids TV presenter over here. I personally have no first-hand knowledge of this guy. I mean, in 1990 I was only 2 years old, and by the time I was old enough to pay attention to kids TV shows, he was overtaken by Mr. Blobby. But according to the 80s kids who were old enough to remember his TV show, he was super duper annoying. And in 1990, for reasons that have yet to be figured out, Andrew Lloyd Webber of all people asked him to do a cover of this random 50s novelty song, which I personally find to be extremely dumb and annoying, which, considering the standards of 50s novelty songs, is saying a lot. But this is now 1990. Clearly the producers thought that we needed to bring this song up to date by haphazardly throwing those say, "Woo! Yeah!" samples that were popularized in It Takes Two, that pretty much every hack in the music industry were using to death around that time. Also, the breakbeat from Paid in Full was used to death a lot around that time. I'm not sure why. And do you want to know what the best part about this whole endeavor was? Allegedly, Timmy didn't even sing on the song! Yeah, the late 80s and early 90s were a ripe time for lip syncing for some reason. only 2 songs in and I'm already scared that I'm going to upset a lot of people, because I have seen a lot of people say that they have nostalgia for this, and I can see the potential in this being an actually good song, but I'm putting this on the list for a couple of reasons. First reason is, I've just found the production on a song to be way too tinny for my liking, and that's a problem I have with a lot of American hits from the late 80s and early 90s. But to be fair, this might just be a me problem, considering that I am autistic and I naturally have misophonia, so things like this just make my head squeal in agony. And reason number 2 for it being on the list is that, to me, this singer's image is just totally incongruous with the song. She's dressed like a hardcore punk, and yet she's doing this super overblown pop production. It reminds me of when I tried to make Pink an R&B singer. It just feels wrong. It also doesn't help that this singer has pretty much non-existent charisma to be able to pull this off. And this is the part of the video where I have to point to the Ace flag in order to explain why this song gives me the heebie-jeebies. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't consider myself to be sex repulsed. It very much depends on my mood, but songs like this just give me a serious case of the ick. Ugh. To me, there is nothing in a song that will gross me out faster than just casually listing all the moves the singer in question is going to do to you. Not only is it unnecessarily graphic for me, but it's also just lazy and uncreative. It also doesn't help that the singer in question is basically a third-rate Bobby Brown. Yeah, you probably expected to find this on the list, as it's well known to be one of Madonna's worst ever singles. Now, for context, 1990 was the year that she starred in a film called Dick Tracy and rushed out a kind of side project album thingy called I'm Breathless, which was inspired by the movie but wasn't a part of the official soundtrack. And rushed is the key word here, because the main problem I have with this song is that it's trying to be this big band showgirl kind of song, and yet the production just sounds so cheap and synthesized, even for 1990 standards. It sounds like a rush job with little thought or effort put into it. And yes, of course, obviously the lyrics are dumb too, but I can at least give them a slight pass, because it's at least meant to be a dumb showgirl kind of song, but it's still no excuse in my opinion. So, do you guys remember Todd in the Shadows' Worst of 87 video where he mentioned this?
Medeiros had one more hit, a duet with Bobby freaking Brown of all people, and then he mercifully disappeared and the world did its best to forget he ever existed.
Well, this is the song that he was referring to, and it shouldn't surprise anyone that it's as bad as it sounds on paper. It sounds like a lame attempt at a George Michael song if he did New Jack Swing, and Glenn, in my opinion, just doesn't have anywhere near the talent or any charisma to pull this off. Maybe if it was a Bobby Brown solo song, it could have been better. I mean, I still wouldn't have liked it, but it would have been an improvement regardless. Now, for us Brits, the only reason we might vaguely remember this song is for that awkward moment in Jukebox Jury where Glenn was hidden backstage while having to hear the likes of Nana Cherry and Vic and Bob tear the song a new one, and then come out on stage, much to everyone's embarrassment.
Pete, what did you make of that?
Well, I don't know. Right load of couplers, that was, wasn't it?
I'll tell you what, he's the first person we've seen on there tonight that I'd have a decent chance with in a fight.
You're not a violent man, no, surely?
I'm not, but I was just thinking.
But you are a violent man, aren't you?
When I hear music like that.
What a legacy to have. Here becomes more of that annoying, overblown, tinny production that I complained about earlier in the video, except this song has the added bonus of some really awful chopped vocal effects. The early 90s in the American charts had quite a few no-name Paula Abdul wannabes after she had breakout success in '89, and they mostly sucked, and this song is no exception in my opinion. I don't know exactly what it was that made a lot of Paula's songs pop, given that she wasn't exactly a great singer herself. Maybe it was the fact that she actually was very charismatic, unlike a lot of her knockoffs, I don't know. I'm struggling to say much about this song if you can't tell. It's one of those cases where the crappiness pretty much speaks for itself. Jesus Christ, this song is probably the one on the list with the most incompetent, cheap sounding production. And considering that Hanky Panky is on the list, it says a lot. Even by 1990 standards, this production sounds chintzy as all hell, so you can imagine by 2022 standards, oh my god, this sounds atrocious with the cheesy porno sax and the lame, easy listening aesthetic it has. Oh my ears! The real cherry topping on top of this crap sundae, though, is this guy's terrible singing voice. It just sounds so flat and weak. But of course, that's not the priority, given that this song is designed to make a bunch of teen girls swoon, because it's a pretty boy singing the kind of song you would slow dance to at the school disco. The whole thing just sounds like a really bad New Kids on the Block reject, and considering that I think that most of the New Kids songs in general suck, it says a lot as to just how terrible this song is. This is a very serious message, so all of you, please listen, as I try to explain to you why this song blows. Now here's a funny story for you. I originally had Hanging Tough on this list, but I had to remove it because I found out that it first appeared on Billboard's year-end list for 1989. Oops. But even so, in my original list, before I cut it out, I had this song ranked over Hanging Tough because I just find this song so much more cringe. This is, honest to God, one of the most insipid set of lyrics I have ever heard in a peace and love song. It honestly makes We Are the World sound like Shakespeare in comparison. And of course, these sappy AF lyrics are paired with more of that super tinny late 80s American production that I love oh so much, so it always had an uphill battle to get in my good books to begin with. And the weird thing is that I don't hear anyone talk about this song in regards to the New Kids' legacy compared to their other big hits like Step by Step and the aforementioned Hanging Tough. So it's safe to say that this one has been firmly lost to time, and most likely you all had completely forgotten about this song until I brought it up just now. Ah yes, it wouldn't be a worst of 1990 list without the no talent ass clown. And this is indeed his biggest and his most infamous song. Now I'd imagine quite a lot of you were probably expecting this to be number one, and to be honest, it was a toss-up between this and the song I eventually went with for number one because they were both equally horrible in completely different ways, but I'll explain more when we get to number one. But yeah, this guy did serve as an important milestone in terms of me developing my own music taste, as his songs were among the first upon listening as a kid that I realised I completely fucking hated. My mum had one of his albums back then, and I remember her playing it non-freaking stop back then, so Yeah, I guess you could say that a big part of my hatred for this song comes from a form of childhood trauma. Just the whole thing, the lyrics, the vocal delivery are just so overwrought, it's straight up unlistenable to me. Even just hearing a single second of this song makes me wince in agony. But even with that, there is still one song I felt deserved to be number one over this. But before you all find out what I could possibly hate more than that, let's go through the dishonorable mentions first. I find it kind of ironic that a song about wanting to be rich is backed up with that kind of super corporate pop production that you would find in a cleaning up montage of a comedy like Three Men and a Baby. Jeez, autotune can't come fast enough, am I right? The lyrics and the conceit is really stupid, but it's more boring than anything. This is seriously one of the most annoying hooks I have ever heard. This one is here mainly because I just simply cannot get past their hilariously thick Boston accents when they sing about the girls and their fanfare. This is basically that French Kiss song from the previous year, but with some moron talking gibberish over it.
Poison sucks, don't at me.
Boring! Boring! Now I know a lot of you were probably expecting this to be in the top 10, but to be fair, I do think that musically it's decent at least, but yeah, those lyrics are super cringe. And now, without further ado, let's have a quick recap before getting to number one. It was a pretty difficult decision for me to decide whether to put this or the No Talent Ass Clown at number one, but in the end the reason why I put this at number one over the other song is because the subject matter to me is more morally repugnant, and I'll explain why. For those of you who have no idea what this song is about, it's basically the story of a married woman who picks up a random hitchhiker, takes him to a motel, and then bangs him for the purposes of getting knocked up because she really wants a baby and her husband is infertile. Then years later, the hitchhiker bumps into the woman with the child he fathered and instantly realizes what happened and quite rightly freaks out about it. Now, I don't want to come across like a moralistic asshole. It's not the subject alone that offends me, I mean, there's nothing wrong inherently with making pop songs about dark subject matter, but my problem with the song is that it frames it as it's some grand romantic story, and I'm like, no! And the sad thing is that one of the reasons why I think it was such a big hit at the time was because the general public thought it was romantic, as they famously don't pay much attention to song lyrics. I mean, why else is Every Breath You Take still highly requested for weddings? So that's it for this video. Obviously what's going to come up next is the best hits of 1990. Now, I tried to experiment with trying a few different things, like different titles and trying to use shorter music clips in order to avoid the copyright bots, and also use a Diamond Axe Music Studio style recap towards the end. So I think it went pretty well, so I might carry on with this format with my year-end videos. So, until next time, whenever that may be, I'll see you then.